before we move on to our final award, congratulations to all of our nominees and winners. As I say, in 11 years in journalism, I'm yet to come to an awards do. I actually sat down there and had that nervous moment with the golden envelope. I've applied for plenty, but not actually successfully got a nomination, so you've got off to a far better start than I managed to do. There's one final award for us to present this afternoon. It's the Steve Harris Award for Student Journalist of the Year. Now, this is the first time that this award has been part of the BJTC Awards ceremony. It replaces the Student Journalist Award, which was given to the very best of the best. To better explain how this award has come about and to give us a sense of what it stands for, let's join Martin Hurd, who is the BJTC Company Secretary.
But the sad death of Steve Harris on the 2nd of January 2013 was a shock to all his friends and colleagues, but it actually left quite a hole in the heart of the BJTC. Steve had been a board member of the BJTC for many years, representing the NUJ, and after that he became our accreditation director doing the job that John Goodell is now doing. So his involvement with the BJTC goes back at least 2 decades. Very soon after Steve's death, the board decided they wanted to do something or create something in Steve's name to ensure that his dedication to broadcast journalism training, to the BJTC, to its courses and its students would be remembered. And thus the Steve Harris Award. Now, Steve was passionate about convergence in broadcast journalism. He believed that students that learnt on their courses to embrace every aspect of broadcast journalism, to be truly multi-skilled, to use all the tools in there that they had available, would be the most employable journalists and the most successful journalists. And it was with this in mind that the board decided to set up this award with the criteria that in the entry who won would, in the view of the judges, use everything that they had available to create and promote that piece. Now, we knew when we decided that this was what we were going to do, that it was quite possible that the winner would not necessarily be one of the winners in the specialist categories, but it would be a student who had the skill and ambition and imagination to use all those skills that Steve was so passionate about. It gives me pleasure to welcome to the stage Steve's wife, Pat, to present this inaugural Steve Harris Award.
I'd just like to say a couple of sentences, if I might. I did wonder occasionally what Steve used to get up to when he was away on his trips. And now I know, and it's fantastic. So if the BJTC would like a health psychologist anytime, I'm available. Okay, but now I would like to present this award. I think Steve would be absolutely thrilled at the idea of it, that it was created in this way and that it is to be awarded for the reasons that Martin outlined. So I am happy to announce that this award goes for the first time ever to Catherine Williams from Falmouth University. Okay, and this is for your runner-up piece in the TV documentary category entitled Without a Diagnosis. So congratulations, Catherine. Another certificate for you.
Just a quick word about Catherine's entry there and what the judges had to say in claiming that first award of the Steve Harris Student Journalist of the Year. The judges said that Catherine Williams appears to have been very enterprising in terms of multimedia production, a documentary in use by charities in the UK and Australia, and has been viewed in more than 40 countries and has used Twitter, Facebook and a dedicated website. And she says that she has been using social media in pre-production and in marketing. I understand tweeting like there's no tomorrow for the last 24 hours as well. So that is convergence if ever you wanted to see it. So let's have a quick further watch of Without a Diagnosis.
Now, a lot of the families that have these undiagnosed conditions in their children, their parents aren't affected, other children in the family aren't affected. Why is it that this happens?
Well, the errors in the genes occur as the result of mutations, and mutations can happen spontaneously in our cells, usually associated with the process of cell division. So when the cell needs to divide, it has to replicate, and errors can occur so that the DNA isn't copied correctly, and changes from a small single base, which is one of the chemicals that makes up the DNA, can take place, or larger rearrangements so that whole sections of DNA may be missing or duplicated.
And so whether the problems are spontaneous or not is another unknown for our families.
Right, final few words from me before we start having start having a few drinks. I think some people have got cracking already on that score, but before we have lunch as well. And it's just a kind of brief reflection really on my sort of 11 years in this industry, and back to that stuff I was talking about, myth of talent and power of practice, and just diving in on opportunities, because it really is a kind of opportunity-led industry where if you get opportunities and you seize them and you take them, you can really turn them into something, and you never quite know what a particular opportunity is going to lead to. And just as a sort of very quick illustration of that, when I was a year into my career at the BBC after I'd finished my traineeship at ITN, I was a reporter in local radio in Newcastle. And a job came up to be a reporter for Radio 5 Live in the North East. And I was 23 and I thought I don't stand much of a chance. And I applied, and sure enough, I didn't stand much of a chance because they actually gave the job to somebody who could do it. But they said to me at the time, well, how about you come down to London and work for us in London instead? And I wasn't quite convinced because it wasn't quite the right job for me, but my news editor said, it'll stretch you, it'll get you doing national stuff, it'll help you develop in the round as a journalist. And I took it on, and a few months later I was working with an editor who took me to South Africa, to a township in Durban called Umlazi. We did a week of programmes with Jane Garvey, who was a 5 Live presenter at the time, now one of the Women's Hour presenters, and working with this editor called Simon Peakes, and had a fantastic time working with him. And then went off and developed my career as a reporter at Westminster and in Brussels as a Europe correspondent for a couple of years. And then about 8 years later, got a call from Simon Peakes who said, I am piloting to look for new presenters on the World Service, and would you be interested? It's like asking a 6-year-old if they'd be interested in going to see the ice cream van. Of course I'm interested, I said to him, but I'm not kind of convinced that, you hearing me doing a two-way about yesterday's cabinet on 5 Live Breakfast necessarily qualifies me to do 2.5 hours live on Al-Shabaab in Somalia or whatever. But he was more convinced about the potential for it to work than I certainly was. And I kind of flung myself at it, completely petrified that I'd be a total shambles. And some of those programmes probably weren't quite as slick as I would have liked them to be at 4 o'clock in the morning. But, a couple of years on, and I've done sort of 60, 70 hours of live radio presentation, and all that from a job that I very nearly didn't take 10 years previously with an editor who I hadn't seen for 9 years. And it's just a tiny little illustration of how you never know in this industry where little opportunities that might seem quite small or might even seem turned downable at the time that they come your way can suddenly pop up and offer you something amazing a little down the line, because it's a village industry. I was noticing, chatting to some of the guys beforehand, of the connections that people have in this industry are infinite, and they cross from one organisation to another and from one medium to another. And you guys will be bumping into each other, I promise you, if you stay in this industry for the next 50 years, in all sorts of improbable places, where you'll be standing in a press conference in Kazakhstan, as I was once, and got a tap on the shoulder for somebody I hadn't seen for 10 years. And that way you can build up a career and have an absolutely superb time doing it, because it is simply the best way to make a living. And never forget that when the calls come to get up at 4 in the morning or go to bed at 3 in the morning, because there are plenty of people out there doing jobs that are not a fraction as interesting as your jobs. You're about to embark on, no doubt, really exciting careers in media that's continuing to sort of develop and grow and thrive and change before our eyes. And good luck to you all. I'm sure you're going to be a huge success. And thanks for having me as your host.
Well, there we have it, the end of another award ceremony from the BJTC, and we look forward to 2014. If you're still on your course, of course you could enter. I would like to say on behalf of the BJTC, if you've graduated and you're embarking on that career, a very good luck. Don't forget us. You can see here we're on Twitter, and we'd love you also to tweet your pictures from today or any of your experiences. There's a hashtag on all the tables. But stay in touch with us and go back and see your courses. And as Chris has done so fantastically well today, you can be an inspiration to the students that come along after you. So thank you again. I've got some housekeeping things. If you are one of those winners, the list we've just heard, if you'd like to come back to the stage before you nibble on a sandwich, that would be good, because we just want to get some wider pictures from you. And all it leaves me is to say, I know it's been said, but thank you to the technical team, and a very big thank you to Helen Hurd, our company administrator, who has really done all the hard work in making sure these entries have been here. And of course, finally, he was brilliant, wasn't he? And it's all down to one of his first jobs, I'm sure. No. Thank you so much, Chris Mason. You're a star. Thanks very much. Goodbye.